Good morning, you wonderful YouTubers. Welcome to my channel, Tiger Rose Rides. You find me on a glorious Friday morning on my way to Butser's Hill. Again, you've heard me say this many times, I just love this ride. It's got such a great mix of roads. And it's dead dry. Not a lot of traffic, it's that time of day. Probably about 20 to 12, something like that. And oh no, it's 8 minutes past 11. Just looked at my clock. And as I say, such a lovely ride. I've had a very good week. I think it was last weekend. My son, his partner, and their children took me out to a lovely carvery. Can't remember where it was though, but take my word for it, it was nice. So thank them for that. Other than that, I've been out riding quite a bit. I've had a lot of problems with microphones. I don't know if they're not charging properly or what, but hopefully this will work today and I can finally get the video out. Because I've been wanting to put this video out for the last 4 days. But as I say, the planets were not aligned and it didn't work out that way. So what am I doing this week? This week I will mostly be doing the new Hudson motorcycle company. Not one I'd heard of before. So it was a learning curve for me as much as it's going to be for anyone else. So I will get into that shortly, but until then I'm just going to let you enjoy a little bit of this ride, and then I'll get into it. Enjoy. On to today's history. New Hudson Motorcycles was a British motorcycle manufacturer founded in 1903 by George Patterson in Birmingham. Their first motorcycle, which was actually produced in 1902, was woefully unsuccessful. Although they did show 2 bikes at the Stanley show, and a review in the 1902 show magazine quoted, "On stand 93, the new Hudson Cycle Company of Birmingham displayed 2 very serviceable looking motorcycles, one fitted with a vertical 2 horsepower Dion engine, embodying all the latest improvements, including their special silencer. The motor is clamped to the down tube and in addition is supported behind from the bracket and seat tube. A special point about this motor is that it gives a much narrower thread than usual." The other machine in the show fitted with the latest 2 horsepower Minerva engine. Both machines have the special tubular stays in the front forks. spray carburetors, automatic lubrication, and are finished in the usual style for which this enterprising firm are noted. Price of either machine is £45. Later, in late 1910, the company returned, this time in Summerhill Street. They listed two models of conventional design, fitted with a 2.5 horsepower or 3.5 horsepower Jap engines, belt drive, Druid, or as they were more commonly known, girder forks, and with various transmission options. In 1911, New Hudson added their own 3.5 horsepower engine. A nice looking engine, which as you can see has influences from other engines of the era, such as Jap and Minerva, which they still use for their other models. However, in 1913, the Jap engines were dropped and they added their own 2 3/4 horsepower motor. In 1914, a 6 horsepower V-twin appeared, plus a 211cc two-stroke lightweight. This and the 3.5 horsepower single ran on until 1916. The new Hudson 2 1/4 horsepower two-stroke, which sported 211cc with a Bosch magneto ignition and chain drive. It also had an innovative countershaft, 2-speed gearbox transmission, and a chain and belt drive. At the modest price of £27 and 5 shillings, during the First World War, the company, like many other motorbike companies during this time, turned over the factory to the war effort and did not return to motorbike production until post-war, when only the two-stroke was listed. It was at the Olympia show in 1921 that the magazine report describes the light two-stroke model as follows, and I quote, "Notable on account of their fine finish and general excellence of design, the new Hudson two-stroke motorcycles exhibited on this stand are sure to attract attention. The little 62mm by 70mm engine is well known as a giant in performance, and the ratios of the two-speed gearbox 5:9 to 1 give a satisfactory road speed with tremendous hill climbing powers. The riding position is very comfortable, and the saddle is all but 25 inches from the ground, to which desirable end the low-built frame and 24-inch wheels are contributory factors. The tank is tastefully finished in brown and has a capacity of 1 3/4 gallons of petrol and 3 pints of oil. As the petrol consumption is in the neighbourhood of 100 miles per gallon, it will be realised that a full day's riding can be accomplished on 1 tank full of spirit. In 1922, a 594cc 4-stroke single appeared. Seen here with a sidecar, the new 4 horsepower has a single cylinder engine of 87 by 100mm bore and stroke. The side-by-side valves are operated by a single cam, and clear air spaces are left between the cylinder walls and gas ports. A 2-ringed aluminium piston is fitted, and plain bearings are used throughout. Special precautions being taken to avoid oil leakage. The transmission is by chain, a shock absorber being mounted on the engine shaft, and a Sturmey Archer 3-speed box being fitted to the bottom bracket casting. The magneto is carried behind the cylinder, and all in all a lovely bike and very well made. In addition to the well-known 2 1/4 horsepower two-stroke popular model, a single engine with a chain-driven and Sturmey Archer 2-speed gear with clutch and kickstart was also being marketed. This little machine would be turned out with foot plates, leg shields, air deflector to plug, and a 24-inch tyres. The specification to be ideal for businessmen, since sensible mudguards had not been forgotten. In 1923, the two-strokes were stopped, but 346cc and 296cc models appeared. The 346cc New Hudson is an entirely new model, the engine being distinctly reminiscent of the firm's bigger power unit. The cylinder carries enormous radiating fins, whilst the gases are led away through an exhaust pipe of unusually large bore into an aluminium expansion box mounted just forward of the rear hub. The valves are no less than 1 3/4 inches in diameter, and the cast aluminium chain cases are amongst the best looking, and both brakes are of the internal expanding pattern. Following what is now standard New Hudson practice, the tank is made in two sections, telescoping into each other so that the partition is readily accessible should repairs become necessary. A 498cc solo model is materially the same bike. The small two-stroke New Hudson is again offered in three forms for 1923, namely the popular sporting and tourist models, which have proved so satisfactory that they remain unchanged except for the addition of footboards to the popular edition. 1924, a 346cc overhead valve model appeared, and in 1926 models of 490cc and 594cc were listed. In 1927, a New Hudson came second in the senior TT and set records at Brooklands. In 1929, the range included several 350 and 500cc SV and overhead valve machines, a 600 SV, a 250 SV, and 4 sidecars. The 249cc SV model was rebranded as the Ixion and was sold at a reduced price in order to clear stocks. That year, the company purchased the Girling brake patent from the inventor Albert Girling to supply brake systems to Ford, Austin, Rover and Riley, and in 1931 the range was revised so that the engines were inclined with partial enclosures. In 1932 the Depression years were hard for all concerned. The inclined engines had had their day, enclosure was not so popular, and the new engines had problems. In 1933, having hit a low spot, the company ceased the production of motorcycles and concentrated on making Girling brakes. 1940, the name of New Hudson reappeared on autocycle powered by a 98cc Villiers engine. In 1943, the Girling interests were sold to Lucas, and the company went back to bicycles, making with a range of autocycles or lightweight motorcycles. Post-war, the firm had, by then, become part of BSA, and the autocycle continued until the end of the decade in 1948. The New Hudson was one of the cheapest autocycles available, priced at £48, 17 shillings and 11 pence, and in 1949 the autocycle was revised to use the Villiers 99cc 2F unit and continued for several years until 1956, when it was completely restyled and ran on in that form. In 1958, production came to a close, but there are still many of the New Hudson bikes out there at auctions, shows, clubs and museums. Well, that's this bike history for this week done. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, that's it from me this week. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, well done. I will see you next week. I don't know what history I'm doing just yet, but I will figure it out. So until then, take care and ride safe.